The brilliant sunlight poured through the massive glass windows of JFK International Airport. Julian Pierce stretched his arms, enjoying an absolutely refreshing mood. For 2 full weeks, he had been sipping the finest wine with a beautiful woman on the beaches of Street. Bart's, was this not the true essence of human life? Julian, wait up! Chloe Harper pouted playfully, rushing after him while dragging her designer suitcase. Why are you walking so fast? I am wearing heels, you know. Julian stopped and looked back at her. Chloe was decked out in luxury brands from head to toe, wearing oversized sunglasses and flaunting a healthy, sun-kissed tan. She stepped close, linking her arm through his and leaning tightly against him as if desperate for his affection. I had so much fun these past 2 weeks. She looked up at him and asked. Julian lightly pinched her cheek. Of course it was fun. Well, it must have been a lot better than being stuck with that ugly, old legal wife of yours, right? Chloe flashed a bright smile, her eyes crinkling with genuine amusement. So what I mean is, can we come here just the 2 of us every year from now on? Whatever you say. The 2 walked out of the airport, laughing and chatting. Julian's secretary, Marcus Hayes, was already waiting outside. Mr. Pierce, Miss Harper. Marcus politely took their luggage and opened the rear door. Julian and Chloe got in, and the luxury sedan glided smoothly toward Manhattan. Chloe leaned on Julian's shoulder, messing with her smartphone, when she suddenly clicked her tongue in annoyance. What is it? Julian asked. I posted on Instagram thanking you for taking me on a romantic getaway. But one of my friends left a comment saying, isn't your man already married? Chloe jutted out her lip. It really ruined my mood. Julian frowned. They are just saying that out of jealousy, so do not pay attention to it. I know. I should just ignore them. Chloe rolled her eyes and then asked, oh, right. Wasn't that legal wife of yours supposed to give birth soon? If I recall, the due date was sometime in the past few days. At those words, Julian froze. Give birth? He pulled out his phone, checked the date, and scrolled through his recent call logs. Over the past 2 weeks, there had been several missed calls from his mother, Margaret Pierce, but he had ignored them. There were also a few text messages, but he had only skimmed them. From his nominal wife, Eleanor, there was not a single message. She was a woman who knew her place. It probably happened a few days ago. Julian tossed his phone back into his pocket. It does not matter. My mother would have taken care of it. Chloe did not ask any further. The car arrived first at Chloe's luxury high-rise apartment on the Upper East Side. Julian helped unload her bags. Chloe wrapped her arms around his neck and refused to let go. Are you going to stay with me tonight? She blinked her eyes pleadingly. Julian kissed her lightly on the lips. Get some rest first. I need to check on some work at the office. Only then did Chloe release her grip and see him off. Then you have to come back early. Julian got back into the car. Marcus asked, Mr. Pierce, where should I take you now? Julian thought for a moment before answering. To the family estate. The car changed direction, heading toward the Pierce family mansion in Greenwich, Connecticut. 30 minutes later, Julian stepped inside the grand estate. Margaret Pierce, who was having tea in the living room, had her eyes light up when she saw her son. My boy is home. Margaret stood up and looked him up and down. You lost weight, and you are so tan. You must have had a hard time out there. Julian chuckled. I am fine, Mother. Fine? What do you mean, fine? The Caribbean sun is incredibly harsh. Margaret pulled him over and made him sit on the sofa. Are you hungry? Should I have the chef make you some organic bone broth? I am all right. Julian leaned back against the sofa. Anyway, Mother, did anything happen here over the past few days? The smile on Margaret's face stiffened slightly, but she quickly regained her composure. No, what could possibly happen? As long as you had a good time, that is all that matters. Julian nodded and pulled out his phone to check the stock market. Margaret sat next to him for a moment before suddenly speaking up. Son, listen. Eleanor had the baby. Julian's fingers stopped moving. He looked up. She gave birth? Yes. Margaret pursed her lips. She had a 7-pound baby boy. Julian stared blankly for a few seconds before letting out a short sigh. Margaret gauged her son's reaction to figure out her next move. So, what are you going to do? What do you mean? Julian set his phone down. Mother, did you hand her the divorce papers? Margaret's expression instantly turned sour. I did. But that stubborn bitch refuses to sign them. She said if you want a divorce, you have to come and face her yourself. Julian sneered coldly. She must think she is someone important. That is exactly what I said. a girl from a trashy, low-class background acting like she is the true madam of the Pierce family. Margaret chimed in. But son, she still gave birth to our family's heir. We cannot just ignore the child. Julian thought for a moment. Where is the baby? At the private postpartum care estate, Margaret said. I had someone send her there. It costs tens of thousands of dollars a month, but they said the deposit was non-refundable, so I forced her to go. Julian stood up. Understood. I will go see her. Margaret panicked. You are going right now? What are you going to do when you get there? Julian straightened his jacket. I will just take the child and kick the woman out. That way, there will not be any annoying problems later. Margaret nodded. Right. Go and come back quickly. I will have a hot meal ready for you tonight. Julian left the house. Marcus was still waiting in the car. To the Serenity Elite Maternity Retreat, Julian ordered. The car pulled away. Julian leaned back against the seat, closed his eyes, and rested. He had absolutely no feelings for Eleanor. The only reason he married her was to appease his mother's bizarre obsession. Margaret had become fixated on a highly paid astrologer who insisted that Eleanor's precise astrological chart was the key to reversing the family's failing fortunes. Julian, indifferent to who he married and tired of her constant nagging, simply went along with it. Sure enough, during their 3 years of marriage, the Pierce Holdings business thrived day by day. Now that she had delivered a son, it was time for her to step aside. The child had Pierce blood, so he obviously had to stay. He figured giving her a $500,000 alimony check would be more than enough mercy. The car stopped at the entrance of the retreat. Julian stepped out. The facility was incredibly luxurious. In the marble-floored lobby, 2 female staff members in uniform greeted him. Who are you here to see? The receptionist asked with a smile. Eleanor Pierce. Julian answered briefly. The receptionist searched her computer and looked up. Mrs. Pierce is in room 308. You can take this elevator to the 3rd floor and go to the end of the hall. Julian nodded and headed for the elevator. Arriving on the 3rd floor, he found room 308 and knocked, but there was no answer. He knocked several more times, yielding the same result. Frowning, Julian reached out and pushed the door. It was unlocked. The room was completely empty. The bed was neatly made, and the curtains were pulled back, allowing the sunlight to brightly illuminate the space. Julian walked in and looked around. The closet doors were wide open but completely bare, and there was not even a water glass on the table. The bathroom was similarly empty, with the shampoo and body wash arranged as if they had never been touched. Where did she go? Just as Julian pulled out his phone to call Eleanor, he heard footsteps behind him. Are you Mr. Pierce? Julian turned around to see a middle-aged woman in a nurse's uniform standing in the doorway holding a tray with a bowl of soup. Who are you? Julian asked. I am the private maternity nurse assigned to Mrs. Pierce. She walked into the room and set the tray down. You finally came, Mr. Pierce. Julian stared at her. Where is Eleanor? The nurse looked bewildered. Did you not know, sir? Know what? Mrs. Pierce already checked out 2 weeks ago. Julian's frown deepened. She left? Where to? The nurse shook her head. I do not know that. That afternoon, she suddenly said she was leaving and asked me to pack her bags. I asked her where she was going, but she did not answer. All I saw was a black car pulling up to the front to pick her up. An ominous feeling brushed past Julian's heart. Did she take the baby too? Yes. She took the young master with her. Damn it. Julian cursed and took out his phone to make a call. Mr. Pierce, the nurse suddenly spoke up. When Mrs. Pierce left, she left an item for you. Julian's fingers stopped. What item? The nurse pulled an envelope from her pocket and handed it to him. Mrs. Pierce said this was a great gift she was leaving for you. Julian took the envelope and inspected it, but nothing was written on the outside. The flap was tightly sealed. What did she say? Julian asked. The nurse thought for a moment and replied. She said that in a few days, a man with the last name Pierce would come looking for her, and I should give this to him. And she left a message hoping that you would like this great gift. The ominous feeling in Julian's heart grew stronger. He ripped open the envelope and dumped the contents out. The first thing that fell out was a few sheets of paper. Opening them, he saw it was a divorce settlement agreement with Eleanor's signature on it. The date was 2 weeks ago. This is insane. He cursed again. What is she scheming? I have not even signed it yet, and she signed it first? The nurse stood to the side, keeping her head down and saying nothing. Julian tossed the divorce papers aside and checked the remaining contents of the envelope. There was a USB flash drive and a small note. He unfolded the note. Only one sentence was written on it. Julian, plug in the flash drive and listen. This is the first gift I am giving you. Julian glared blankly at the sentence for a few seconds before trying to plug the flash drive into his phone. However, his latest smartphone model did not have a USB port. Do you have a computer here? He looked up and asked the nurse. The nurse shook her head. I do not have one. There should be one at the front desk in the lobby. Julian took the flash drive and walked out of the room. He took 2 steps before stopping and looking back at the empty room. She left 2 weeks ago. While he was sunbathing in street barts with Chloe, his wife had taken their newborn son and left this place. What was he doing at that time? He was having a candlelit dinner on the beach, snorkeling, and rolling around in a massive hotel bed with another woman. An inexplicable sense of panic suddenly surged in Julian's heart. He walked quickly out of the room, took the elevator down to the first floor, and headed straight for the front desk. Let me use your computer. He slammed the flash drive down onto the desk. Startled by his intensity, the receptionist hurriedly pushed her laptop toward him. Julian plugged in the flash drive and opened it. Inside, there was only one audio file. He double-clicked it with the mouse. At first, there was the crackling sound of static, and then a familiar voice flowed out. Eleanor, here is the divorce settlement. Read it. Julian froze. It was his mother's voice, followed by another voice, weak but clear. Where is Julian? Why did you come instead of him? It was Eleanor. Julian's grip on the mouse tightened. The audio continued, followed by his mother's sharp tone. Julian is too busy to care about trivial matters like this. Besides, my stepping in is more than enough. Hurry up and sign it. Stop wasting my time. The sound of pages flipping could be heard. Property division. All assets under Julian Pierce's name belong entirely to Julian Pierce. Custody of the child belongs to Julian Pierce. I am allowed to see the child once a month, but I must ask for permission 3 days in advance. Visitation is only possible after obtaining the Pierce family's consent, Eleanor's voice asked. I can only see the child I gave birth to once a month? Why? Is that not enough? If it is not enough, then do not sign it. But keep this in mind. If you do not sign, you will never see his face even once. Do you think you can take the eldest grandson of the Pierce family? You should look in the mirror and know your place. Coming from a trashy, penniless background, how dare you try to cling to the Pierce family bloodline? Julian's expression grew increasingly grim. He had never heard his mother speak like this before. He knew his mother disapproved of Eleanor, but he never imagined it was to this extent. Right now, Julian and Chloe are in street barts. They are so deeply in love. Do not be clueless and interfere. Let me be honest with you, Eleanor. During the 3 years you were in the Pierce family, you failed to give us an heir. If it were not for that psychic's claim that your aura would boost my son's luck, Julian would never have brought you in. Now that you have given birth to a son and completed your mission, know your place and sign the papers quickly. Take the money I prepared and get lost wherever you want. A rustling sound was heard. $50,000. The best 3 years of my life. The child I risked my life to birth. All the humiliation I endured is only worth $50,000 to you. Suddenly, Eleanor burst into laughter. That laughter sent chills down Julian's spine. Mother, let me ask you one thing. When I first entered this house, you said that if I just gave birth to a son, Julian would finally settle down. Do you remember? So what if I remember? It is perfectly normal for men to see a few women on the side. You should blame yourself for not being able to hold on to your husband's heart. Who else is there to resent? I see. Understood. Then came the sound of paper being torn to shreds. What the hell are you doing? I am not signing. Tell Julian to come and face me himself. If he has any real guts, tell him to look me in the eye and say the word divorce. Hiding behind his mother and bringing a lawyer to force his wife to sign, is that what makes a man? You crazy bitch. Fine. Let's see how this plays out. When Julian gets back, I will make sure you see exactly how he tears you apart. The sound of high heels faded away, followed by the loud slam of a door. The audio file ended there. The receptionist carefully observed Julian's terrifying expression, barely daring to breathe. Julian sat blankly, his hand tightly gripping the mouse. His knuckles had turned completely white. His mind went blank. $50,000. His mother had brought $50,000 to force a woman who had just given birth to sign a divorce settlement. She threatened to take the baby away and insulted her for not belonging in the Pierce family. And what about him? He was whispering sweet nothings to Chloe in street Barts without making a single phone call home. The day Eleanor gave birth, his mother was at a country club golf gathering, and he was on a beach holding Chloe, watching the sunset. Julian suddenly remembered the last time he saw Eleanor. She was 8 months pregnant. Dragging her heavily pregnant body, she had made chicken noodle soup and brought it to his office. At that time, he was on the phone with Chloe. Seeing Eleanor walk in, he immediately yelled at her. "Who told you to come here without asking?" He then kicked her out. When she left, her eyes were red, but she did not say a word. After that, she never visited his office again. He thought she finally knew her place and was trying not to be a nuisance. Thinking about it now, her heart had already died back then. "Excuse me, Mr. Pierce," the receptionist asked cautiously. "Are you okay?" Julian snapped back to reality, pulled out the flash drive, and gripped it tightly in his hand. The nurse, who had come downstairs at some point, stood hesitantly next to him and spoke up. When Mrs. Pierce left, she gave me one more message to pass on to you." Julian quickly looked up. "What message?" The nurse swallowed hard. "Mrs. Pierce said this was only the first gift. She said there are a few more gifts remaining, so you should take your time receiving them." Julian's expression completely hardened. He abruptly stood up and stormed out of the maternity retreat. Marcus was waiting in the car. Julian violently yanked the car door open. "Investigate. Find out where Eleanor went right now, and figure out everything she did and everyone she met over the past 2 weeks. And," he paused for a moment and lowered his voice, "investigate exactly how she lived over the past 3 years. Leave nothing out." Marcus was taken aback but hurriedly nodded. "Yes, Mr. Pierce." The car pulled away. Julian sat in the back seat, his sweaty hand tightly clutching the flash drive. The high-rise buildings rapidly blurred past the window, but his mind was swirling with the voice of Eleanor he had just heard. "I can only see the child I gave birth to once a month? Tell Julian to come and face me himself. I hope you like the great gift I left you." He suddenly recalled the day Eleanor married him. Dressed in a pure white wedding gown, smiling radiantly, her sparkling eyes looking at him as she took each step forward. The way she looked at him then was as if she was looking at her entire world. But now, he did not even know where she was. Julian closed his eyes. An indescribable, extreme sense of anxiety suddenly surged in his chest. He was not worried about her. He was terrified of the truth contained within that flash drive, the audio she recorded 2 weeks ago. What on earth had she been doing over the past 2 weeks? Marcus. He suddenly opened his eyes. "Drive faster." The car sped through the dense city traffic toward the Pierce Holdings headquarters. He had no idea that at this very moment, in a luxurious office on the other side of the city, Eleanor was sitting across from a sharply dressed man. "Are you absolutely sure about your decision?" The man looked at her and asked. "Yes, I have decided." Eleanor nodded, a faint smile appearing on her lips. "It is time to pull the net." The sunlight from the window illuminated her face. Her appearance was completely different from the desperate woman lying in the delivery room 2 weeks ago. Chapter 3. The End of Humiliation. 2 weeks ago, Eleanor held her baby in her arms and sat in the passenger seat of Nathan Montgomery's car. The car drove smoothly toward an unknown destination. She watched the streets flashing quickly by the window, consumed by complex emotions. Just 2 weeks ago, she had lain on a cold operating table, risking her life to give birth to a child for the Pierce family. And 2 weeks later, she was leaving that place holding her baby, leaving behind only a single letter and a flash drive. "Ellie." Nathan spoke up. "Are you tired? Close your eyes. It will take another hour to get home." Eleanor shook her head. "No, I am not sleepy. I just still can't comprehend it." "Comprehend what? How can I be a part of the Montgomery family?" She smiled bitterly. "I grew up in an orphanage and was adopted. After my adoptive parents passed away, I lived alone all this time. I never even imagined I had biological family left." Nathan gripped the steering wheel tightly. "I am sorry. I found you too late. Father never once gave up looking for you over the past 25 years. Father," Eleanor quietly muttered the unfamiliar word. "How is his health?" "He is healthy. He just misses you terribly." Nathan glanced at her. "Even when Mother passed away, she kept calling your name. She apologized for not keeping a close eye on you and letting you get taken by kidnappers. Father spent all this time running the company while traveling all over the country looking for you." His hair turned completely white because of it. Eleanor's eyes welled up with tears. She looked down at the baby in her arms. The child was fast asleep, oblivious to the world. It was a peaceful face that knew nothing of what his mother had just been through. Nathan suddenly spoke up. "Do you have any favors to ask of me?" "I do." Eleanor looked up. Her eyes held a fierce determination that had never been there before. "Make those people pay. The Pierce family trampled all over me for the last 3 years. I cannot just let this go." Nathan smiled coldly. "Do not be ridiculous. The whole reason I am bringing you home is to clear your grievances. Do not worry. Starting today, I will not let anyone lay a single finger on you." The car entered a massive, exclusive, gated community and soon stopped in front of a giant European-style estate in Westchester. Eleanor stepped out of the car holding her baby. Faced with the overwhelming grandeur of the mansion, she paused for a moment. "Let's go in. Father is waiting." Nathan grabbed her bags and led the way. As they opened the front door and stepped inside, a white-haired elderly man leaning on a cane stood in the center of the living room. The old man's gaze locked onto Eleanor and refused to let go. While Eleanor stood frozen, the old man's eyes filled with tears, and he walked toward her with trembling steps. "Ellie, my daughter." The old man's voice shook violently. "Your father finally found you." Eleanor felt a heavy lump in her throat, and tears burst forth. "Father," she tried to kneel while holding the baby. William Montgomery hurriedly caught her. "Get up. Please get up. Do not kneel on the cold floor. Nathan, help your sister sit down." Nathan helped Eleanor to the sofa. William sat closely beside her, looking at her as if his eyes could never get enough. "You look just like her. You look exactly like your mother." William wiped his tears. "The shape of your eyes, your nose, you are the spitting image of your mother when she was young." Eleanor's heart ached but also felt incredibly warm. Growing up, she had never known a parent's true love. Her adoptive parents had been kind to her, but they were not her real blood. Yet suddenly, she had a biological father and a biological brother. Words could not describe this feeling. "Father, I am sorry. I am sorry I made you search for me for so long," she said with a choked voice. "Nonsense. I am the one who is sorry." William tightly held her hand. "When you were little, your mother took you to a local festival, and she took her eyes off you for just a second, and you vanished. We tore the city apart, reported it to the police, handed out flyers, but we could not find you. Your mother got sick from the grief, and her health deteriorated." Unable to finish his sentence, the chairman's hand was held firmly by Eleanor. "Father, that is all in the past. I am back now. Yes, yes, that is right. You are back, and that is what matters. Thank you for coming back." William wiped his tears and looked at the baby in her arms. "Is this child my grandson?" "Yes. He was born just 2 weeks ago." Eleanor slightly shifted the baby's face toward the chairman. "His last name is not Pierce. His last name is Montgomery. I named him Leo. I chose the name myself." William paused. "You are giving him the Montgomery name?" "Yes." Eleanor nodded. "I do not want to raise him as the blood of that family, who have no right to give him the Pierce name." Nathan, standing nearby, smiled coldly. "I clearly remember the grudge of that Pierce bastard who tormented our mother and my sister." William's expression sank heavily. "Ellie, tell your father, how have you lived in the Pierce household for the past 3 years?" Eleanor stayed silent for a moment before slowly opening her mouth. 3 years ago, as an ordinary office worker, she accidentally met Julian Pierce. Back then, Julian bought her flowers, drove her to and from work, and staged all sorts of romantic gestures. She mistakenly thought he was her destiny and rushed into marriage. But after getting married, she learned the real reason Julian married her. A high-profile psychic had said her astrological chart would bring massive success to her husband's path. At the time, Pierce Holdings was on the decline. Margaret Pierce had been desperately seeking psychics everywhere and was given a secret remedy. Bringing a daughter-in-law with overflowing luck for her husband would change their fate. Eleanor's chart fit perfectly, and that was how she became the daughter-in-law of the Pierce family. During the first year, Julian treated her with a basic level of respect. There was no passionate love, but he provided for her and accompanied her to necessary social events. Sure enough, Pierce Holdings began to prosper as if by magic. Margaret became even more blindly devoted to the superstition, boasting to everyone she met that Eleanor was the family's lucky charm. But from the second year, Julian began to change. He came home late, did not answer her calls, and started treating her coldly. Only later did she find out he had taken a mistress, a former obscure actress named Chloe Harper. Eleanor once got incredibly angry and complained to Margaret, but Margaret told her, "It is no big deal for a man to see a few women on the side. Who is to blame if you cannot keep your husband's heart?" From that moment on, her heart died. But coincidentally, she discovered she was pregnant right around that time. She thought that if they had a child, Julian would get his act together. However, on the day she gave birth, Julian was off on a romantic getaway in Street Barts with Chloe. A romantic getaway. Nathan's voice turned ice cold. He went on a trip with another woman and left you alone in the hospital to give birth? Eleanor nodded. William trembled all over with rage. That beast. That absolute bastard. Father, do not get too upset. Eleanor poured him a glass of water and handed it to him. I am not done with my story yet, she continued. On her third day postpartum, Margaret brought a lawyer to the hospital and forced her to sign a divorce agreement. The agreement stipulated that she would not receive a single cent of the assets under Julian's name, and the Pierce family would have full custody. The condition was that she could only see the child once a month, and only after getting prior permission. When Eleanor refused to sign, Margaret threw a $50,000 check at her, calling it alimony. $50,000. Nathan scoffed in disbelief. The price for my sister giving them their precious heir is a mere $50,000? I did not sign it then, Eleanor said. I told her to make Julian come and see me himself, but he never showed up even until the day I left. I was sent to the maternity retreat, and for 2 full weeks, I did not receive a single phone call from him. William's face turned ash gray. Then how did you get out of there? I made up my mind. Eleanor looked up. That night, looking at my sleeping son, I suddenly realized something. I should not endure it anymore. I had to live for myself and for my child. Just then, Nathan found me, and I followed him out. Nathan chimed in from the side. Father, as soon as we found Eleanor's location, I contacted her immediately. I wanted to bring her straight home, but she told me there was no rush. She had to register the baby's birth, and she had something to leave behind for that Pierce bastard. Leave behind? William was confused. What did you leave behind? A faint smile spread across Eleanor's lips. A very great gift. She recounted the story of the flash drive and the letter. She explained that the audio file contained the verbal abuse her mother-in-law had spewed while forcing the divorce, Nathan added. I already had someone edit the audio file. We can leak it to the internet at any time. William listened silently, then nodded. Good job. Very well done. He looked at Eleanor. You are truly my daughter, Eleanor. You are not a child who will just sit back and be a victim. Ellie, whatever you want to do, your father fully supports you. Although our Montgomery enterprises might not be the absolute top conglomerate, we are a highly respected family in the business world. The Pierce family, who dared to oppress our daughter, will absolutely pay the price. Eleanor's heart felt hot. Thank you, Father. What is there to thank me for? You are my daughter. William patted her hand. For now, just rest at home and focus on your recovery. Do not think about anything else. I have hired a dedicated nanny for you and put a top-tier private chef on standby. Whenever you want to eat something, just tell the chef. Your brother will handle all the outside matters. Eleanor nodded. From that day on, she stayed at the Montgomery estate. A premium nanny and a nutritionist dedicated themselves to caring for her every single day. Nathan specially decorated a nursery and bought an enormous amount of toys and clothes. Even while enjoying all this luxury, Eleanor sometimes felt it was unreal. Just 2 weeks ago, she was alone in a cold maternity center, holding her baby and unable to speak to anyone. Now she had a home, a family, and a powerful backing. But when the quiet night came, and she looked at her sleeping child, Julian invariably came to mind. The photo of him holding another woman in Street Barts. Margaret's words that it was her fault for not keeping her husband's heart. The $50,000 check thrown in her face. She made a promise to herself. Eleanor, never let them get away with this easily. 2 weeks later, Eleanor's health was almost perfectly restored. That night, Nathan came to her room and handed her a stack of documents. What is this? Eleanor took the documents and flipped through them. Corporate secrets of Pierce Holdings? Nathan smiled meaningfully. It is a collection of major projects they are currently pushing, their financial statements, and dirty rumors that cannot be revealed to the public. Eleanor was shocked. How did you get all this? Did you forget what Montgomery Enterprises specializes in? Nathan leaned deep into the sofa. We are a premier investment firm. For the past few years, Pierce Holdings has been desperately searching for investors. We figured out their internal situation a long time ago. On top of that, your mother-in-law, Margaret, has such a loose mouth and shallow judgment. We just attached someone to butter her up a little, and she spilled everything after a few drinks. Eleanor looked at him. Nathan, had you already started investigating them? Since the day I found you? Nathan's eyes gleamed. They are the bastards who oppressed my sister. I needed to know if they were human or animals, right? Eleanor looked down at the stack of documents in her hand and asked suddenly, if we leak this to the world, what happens to Pierce Holdings? If they take a light hit, tens of millions in losses. If they take a heavy hit, immediate bankruptcy, Nathan said. It all depends on how you use it. So, what do you say? Eleanor remained silent for a moment before looking up. Nathan, I have made my decision. Yeah? I am going to deliver these great gifts myself, one by one. She smiled coldly, one by one, stacking them up. I am going to make that man feel his own destruction. Nathan looked at his sister with a proud gaze. Good, do as you wish. The next day, an anonymous dossier was delivered to Pierce Holdings' biggest competitor. At the same time, a file began spreading rapidly across Pierce Holdings' internal corporate intranet. The audio file contained Margaret's voice, terrifyingly clear. Property division. All assets under Julian Pierce's name belong entirely to Julian Pierce. Custody of the child belongs to Julian Pierce. I am allowed to see the child once a month, but I must ask for permission 3 days in advance. Employees at Pierce Holdings gathered in groups, whispering, "Oh my God, the CEO was married? I heard he went on a romantic getaway with his mistress right after his wife gave birth. They say the CEO's mom threw 50 grand at the daughter-in-law and told her to sign the divorce papers. That is truly evil. Tisk, tisk. Who knew Pierce Holdings was so filthy behind the scenes?" The audio file spread like wildfire, eventually flooding anonymous corporate apps like Blind and taking over Twitter. For the past few days, Julian felt like his head was going to explode. Company secrets had leaked, causing massive projects to be snatched up by competitors, resulting in tens of millions of dollars in losses. On top of that, the damn audio file had spread all over the internet, and he was being pointed at whenever he walked outside. Mr. Pierce, the PR team is asking how we should respond to this crisis. Marcus asked cautiously. Respond? What the hell kind of response is there? Julian threw his phone onto his desk. Just find out who the original leaker of this audio file is. Marcus hesitated. Mr. Pierce, the investigation is already done. But what? Why can't you speak? The security team says the initial IP address for the audio file upload traces back to near that maternity retreat. Marcus looked at him. Mr. Pierce, could it be your wife? Julian froze. My wife? Eleanor? Only then did he recall the voice he heard from the flash drive that day. She had recorded the conversation herself when his mother forced the divorce. If so, the mastermind spreading all of this was Eleanor. And there is one more thing I need to report, Marcus said, gritting his teeth. Regarding the leak of company secrets, we dug into the mastermind, and the name Nathan Montgomery came up. Nathan Montgomery? Yes, the current president of Montgomery Enterprises. Montgomery Enterprises? Julian frowned. Did we ever do anything to offend them? Marcus took a deep breath. Nathan Montgomery is Eleanor's biological older brother. Eleanor is the true only daughter of Montgomery Enterprises who went missing 25 years ago. Julian shot up from his seat. What did you just say? Eleanor is the sole heiress of Montgomery Enterprises. The poor wife he had ignored and mistreated for 3 years, the woman his mother had insulted for having a trashy background, was actually the daughter of the ultra-wealthy Montgomery family? Are you sure? His voice shook like a leaf in the wind. I am absolutely sure. Marcus nodded. I have completed all the background checks. Montgomery Enterprises had been desperately searching for her for years and finally found her 2 weeks ago. On the day she left the maternity retreat, Nathan Montgomery came to pick her up himself. His wife was being led by her biological brother back to a true billionaire dynasty, Mr. Pierce. Marcus called out quietly. Julian waved his hand. Get out for now. The secretary retreated, leaving him alone in the office. He stared blankly out the window. His mind was a total wreck. Eleanor, who had always seemed so weak and incompetent, the woman who could not even utter a word of protest, no matter how much his mother bullied her. She was actually the heir to Montgomery Enterprises. She holds that audio file and the fatal trade secrets of Pierce Holdings. What is she planning to do? Is she trying to get revenge on him? Julian suddenly remembered the words written on the note that day. This is only the first gift. There are a few more left, so take your time receiving them. A chill ran down his spine. Just how far did her hand reach? Chapter 4. The unexpected ally Eleanor was sitting on the balcony of the Montgomery estate, drinking warm milk and admiring the distant scenery. The nanny had already put the baby to sleep and taken him away. In this rare, quiet moment, her phone notification pinged. It was a message from Nathan. Pierce Holdings stock plummeted 8% today. She only offered a faint smile and did not reply. Over the past few days, she had monitored Pierce Holdings' movements daily. The stock crash, canceled projects, worsening public opinion. Everything was going exactly according to her plan. But she knew this was only the beginning. Ellie. Nathan opened the door and sat across from her. There is someone who wants to meet you. Who is it? An old friend. Nathan smiled. You will know when you meet her. Eleanor followed her brother downstairs. In the living room sat a woman in her mid-30s, dressed in sharp corporate attire. Her sophisticated features and aura immediately marked her as a successful career woman. Ellie, say hello. This is Victoria Lawson. Nathan introduced her. Tori, this is my sister. Victoria stood up and extended her hand to Eleanor. Eleanor, I have heard a lot about you. Eleanor shook her hand. Hello, Victoria. Just call me Tori. Victoria smiled warmly. Your brother and I have been friends for over 10 years. The three sat down, and Nathan poured tea. Tori, why did you come looking for me? Eleanor asked. Victoria glanced at Nathan, and when he nodded, she got straight to the point. I heard you possess some very interesting materials related to Pierce Holdings. I want to partner with you. Eleanor paused. Partner with me? Yes. Victoria pulled a manila envelope from her designer handbag. I run an entertainment agency called Apex Media Group. We have a score to settle with Pierce Holdings. Eleanor took the envelope, flipped through it, and looked at Victoria. Victoria sighed lightly and began her story. She was college classmates with Julian and his first love. They had dated quite seriously for a few years, but when Julian met Chloe, who had connections in the entertainment industry, he coldly dumped her. If it ended there, Victoria would not be this furious. The real issue was that, to curry favor with Chloe's sponsors, Julian deliberately leaked fatal trade secrets from Victoria's company, driving her agency to the brink of bankruptcy. I have been waiting for a chance to get revenge for years. Victoria gripped her teacup tightly, a guaranteed opportunity to ensure that bastard can never lift his head again. Eleanor remained silent. She felt a strange sense of camaraderie knowing she was not the only woman hurt by Julian. Tori. She looked up. How do we partner up? Victoria looked at her. If we combine the materials in your hands with my connections and media resources, we can completely destroy Pierce Holdings. Eleanor thought for a moment, then asked, what is it that you want? Julian's complete ruin. Victoria enunciated every word with force. I want that bastard to feel the absolute agony of being trampled by others, deep in his bones. When Eleanor looked at Nathan, he nodded. Tori is trustworthy. She helped me out a lot from behind the scenes over the past few years. If it wasn't for her, finding you would have taken much longer. Eleanor nodded. All right, let's do it. The three firmly shook hands. From that day on, Eleanor's life became incredibly busy. While juggling childcare, she learned how to handle information from Victoria. As an expert, Victoria knew exactly what to release immediately and what to hold on to until the decisive moment. Ellie, this video is definitive proof that Chloe cheated. Victoria pointed at her laptop screen. The guy here is Preston Cole III, infamous among third-generation trust fund kids for being absolute trash. Chloe had something going on with him even before she met Julian, and she still hasn't cut ties with him. That idiot Julian has been completely fooled. Eleanor looked at the screen, watching Chloe intimately making out with Preston, and felt a mix of emotions. Julian had treated Chloe like a treasure and abandoned her. But what was the result? Chloe was spectacularly cheating on him and stabbing him in the back. When should we leak this video? She asked. Not yet. Victoria smiled meaningfully. It is most effective to drop it right when they are already tearing each other apart. A few days later, Eleanor heard some news. Julian had come looking for her. More precisely, Julian's secretary had shown up at the gates of the Montgomery estate, handing over an invitation, conveying Julian's wish to meet in person to apologize. Eleanor looked at the elaborately decorated invitation and scoffed coldly. Apologize? What kind of nerve does he have to apologize now? I won't meet him. She threw the invitation into the trash can. Nathan just watched her in silence. The next day, Julian came in person. Dressed in a sharply ironed suit and holding a bouquet of flowers, he stood in front of the Montgomery estate gates. Secretary Marcus stood behind him. Watching him through the home automation monitor, Eleanor was swept up in complex emotions. The man she loved for 3 years, her child's father, and the person who made her the most miserable. Ellie, do you want to see him? Nathan asked. Eleanor stayed silent for a while before shaking her head. No. Nathan ordered the guards over the radio. Send him away. Tell him my sister refuses to see him. The guards went outside. Shortly after, Julian's shouts could be heard from outside. Ellie, I know you are in there. Please, just see me once. I was wrong. I am so sorry for everything. Just give me one chance to apologize in person. Eleanor stood by the window, looking down at him, screaming outside the gates. After screaming for a long time without any response, he eventually left, looking defeated. That night, Eleanor sat quietly in her room holding her baby. When they first got married, Julian was quite gentle with her. When she had a high fever, he drove her to the emergency room in the middle of the night and stayed up taking care of her. At that time, she had sworn to spend the rest of her life with this man. But what happened after that? He embraced another woman, left her to give birth alone in a hospital, and never once came to see his newborn child. Then he used his mother to try and kick her out with $50,000. Could all those things be erased with a simple, I am sorry, Leo? She looked down at her sleeping son. Mommy will never forgive that man. I will make sure he pays the price for what he has done. A few days later, the second great gift was delivered. This time, it was evidence of tax evasion by Pierce Holdings. As soon as the news broke, the IRS immediately launched a tax audit on Pierce Holdings, confiscating all ledgers. The stock plunged, and investors scrambled to dump their shares. Julian was so stressed, he developed mouth ulcers. Have you still not found out who is behind this? He yelled in his office. Marcus could barely breathe as he replied. Mr. Pierce, I checked, and it seems this also leaked from Montgomery Enterprises. Julian froze. Eleanor? That woman again? He collapsed into his chair and buried his head in his hands. Over the past month, he had to clean up garbage-like incidents every single day. Company issues blew up endlessly. People pointed fingers at him outside, and Chloe picked fights with him every day, calling him incompetent. He had never felt so miserable in his life. But for all of this to be the work of that woman, the woman he had never even looked at properly. Mr. Pierce. Marcus opened his mouth carefully. There is one more thing I need to report. What is it? There is a problem on Miss Harper's end. Marcus hesitated and handed him a phone. It would be best if you saw it yourself. A video was playing on the screen. When Julian pressed play, his face turned deathly pale. In the video, Chloe was deep kissing a man in front of a hotel. That man was Preston Cole III, a trust fund kid Julian also knew. The date in the bottom right corner of the video was from 2 months ago, exactly around the time he promised to take Chloe on a romantic getaway to Street Bart's. Where did this video come from? His voice was as cold as ice. It just went viral on the internet, Marcus replied. All the social media platforms are going crazy right now. Julian gripped the phone so tightly his knuckles turned white. Chloe, that bitch. He had abandoned his devoted wife for this woman and headed to Street Bart's. For this woman, he offended the powerful Montgomery family, bringing his company to the brink of bankruptcy. And what was the result? She was putting on a spectacular show of cheating on him. Mr. Pierce, please calm down. Marcus tried to stop him, but it was no use. Julian sprang from his seat and stormed out of the office. He drove to Chloe's apartment and kicked the door open. Chloe, who had a face mask on, shrieked and backed away. Julian, why are you suddenly like this? Are you crazy? That hurts. Let go. Julian grabbed her by the hair, dragged her into the living room, and threw the phone at her face. Explain what this is. Seeing the video on the screen, Chloe's face turned white as a sheet. Julian, it's a misunderstanding. I have nothing going on with Preston. It is in the past. I completely ended it after I met you. Ended it? Julian sneered coldly. The recording date is 2 months ago, right when we were at our peak. Chloe panicked, grabbing his leg, crying and begging. I was wrong. Please. Just think of me as crazy and forgive me just this once. I truly only have you." Julian kicked her away. "Sincerity? A whore like you dares to talk about sincerity?" He left the apartment without looking back. Chloe's desperate wailing echoed behind him. Stepping outside the building, Julian suddenly felt like he had lost his way, not knowing where to go. The company was a mess, and if he went to the family estate, he would have to listen to his mother's nagging. Chloe was a con artist. He had nothing left. No, he had a son. He had a son. Julian thought of the newborn baby held in Eleanor's arms. His son, the bloodline of the Pierce family. If he could just get that child back, he might be able to turn the tide. No matter how much Eleanor hated him, she could not stop a child from seeing his biological father. He had to go to Eleanor and demand the child. He drove back to the Montgomery estate. This time, he simply dropped to his knees in front of the gate. "Ellie, please just come out once. I won't ask for anything else. Just give me the baby back. He is Pierce blood." The guards quickly reported inside. Eleanor stood by the window, looking down at the kneeling man outside. Nathan stood beside her. "What should we do?" Eleanor stayed silent for a long time before speaking. "Let him in. It wouldn't be bad to see his face and put an end to this." Chapter 5. An intricate web of revenge. When Julian was guided into the living room of the Montgomery estate, Eleanor was already sitting on the sofa. She was wearing comfortable loungewear, her hair falling naturally. She radiated a vitality that was incomparable to her pale state at the maternity retreat. In her arms, a small baby was feeding from a bottle. Standing at the doorway, Julian was momentarily left speechless. How long had it been since he looked at this woman so directly? During their 3 years of marriage, he had never once properly looked into her eyes, but seeing her now, she looked like a completely different person. In the past, she always kept her head down, acting like a frightened bird walking on eggshells. Now, she sat with her back straight, staring at him coldly as if looking at a stranger. "Sit down," Eleanor said dryly. Julian walked over and sat on the sofa opposite her. "Ellie," he began. "Do not call me that," Eleanor cut him off. "Choose between Eleanor or Mrs. Pierce." "Ah. Well, you won't be calling me Mrs. Pierce for much longer anyway, so..." Julian was at a loss for words. He looked at the tiny baby in Eleanor's arms. His son. It was the first time he had seen his face. "What is his name?" he asked. "Leo. Leo Montgomery." Julian's brow furrowed. "It should be Pierce." "How can it be Montgomery?" Eleanor laughed coldly. "Pierce? What right do you have to pass the Pierce name onto this child? Because I am his father. Father." Eleanor looked at him with mockery. "Where were you when this child was born? When he was hospitalized for jaundice? Where were you when he woke up crying in the middle of the night looking for milk? A man who didn't even know what his child looked like is now insisting he is the father?" Julian was completely at a loss for words. After a long silence, he softened his voice. "I know I was wrong, Eleanor. But since things have come to this, let's talk rationally. I will agree to whatever conditions you want. Just hand over the child. I will yield on everything else." Eleanor laughed. The sound of her laughter sent a chill down Julian's spine. "Julian." She enunciated each word clearly. "You seem to be severely mistaken. Do you think you are in a position to negotiate with me right now?" She handed the baby to the nanny standing nearby, stood up, and looked down at him. "I leaked your company secrets. I leaked the audio file of your mother. And the video of Chloe cheating? Of course, that was my handiwork too." Julian's eyes widened in shock. "You did all of that?" "That is right," Eleanor nodded. "Do you know what I have been doing in this house for the past month? While recovering and taking care of the baby, I spent every day thinking about how to make you pay the perfect price." Julian leaped up from his seat. His face turned ashen. "Eleanor, isn't this going too far? Too far?" Eleanor fired back coldly. "Did you not think it was going too far when I was in the hospital alone, using all my strength to give birth? Did you not think it was going too far when your mother threw $50,000 at me and demanded I sign divorce papers? Did you not think it was going too far when you were off on a romantic getaway in street barts with your mistress?" She took a step closer to him. Her eyes were icy. "Listen carefully, Julian. It is not over yet. I will collect every single debt you owe me, with interest." Julian took a step back. The woman in front of him was too unfamiliar. Was this woman really the same weak, intimidated Eleanor from the past? The woman who couldn't utter a word of protest even when his mother hurled abuse at her. What exactly was she going to do? His voice trembled slightly. "What are you going to do?" What am I going to do? I am going to make you feel the agony of being trampled under people's feet, deep in your bones. I will make you realize painfully what it means to become destitute. I will make you live the rest of your life in regret. She turned around and sat back on the sofa. If you are done talking, leave. Do not ever come back. Even if you do, I won't see you. Julian stood rooted to the spot, glaring at her with eyes full of anger. You cannot have the child. He is my son. You have no right to stop him from seeing me. Let you see him? Eleanor mocked. Once you have paid off all your debts to me, we will talk about it then. She waved her hand dismissively. Guards approached and dragged Julian outside. The heavy front door slammed shut. Standing outside the door, Julian trembled all over. But there was absolutely nothing he could do. Eleanor stood by the window, watching him walk away miserably. Nathan approached and handed her a glass of water. Good job. You were fierce. Eleanor took the water and smiled bitterly. Nathan, I kept those words pressed down in my heart for 3 years. Nathan patted her shoulder. You do not need to hold back anymore. Say whatever you want to say and live your life. I am here, so no one can bully you. Eleanor nodded and took a sip of water. Oh, Nathan, when does the next gift ship out? Nathan laughed. It is already out for delivery. 3 days later, another massive scandal hit Pierce Holdings. This time, it was bribery. Years ago, Julian's father, Robert Pierce, had bribed a government official with $5 million to acquire a prime piece of real estate. An event buried under the surface was fully exposed by someone with perfect evidence. As soon as the news broke, Robert Pierce was arrested and placed under investigation. Margaret Pierce frantically sought connections, but no one would meet with her. The influential figures who used to suck up to the Pierce family vanished as if avoiding a plague. Son, what are we going to do? If your father goes to jail, our family is finished. Margaret sobbed over the phone. Julian felt like his head would explode. He was already half crazy from the past few days, and this was adding insult to injury. Mother, please calm down. I will look for a way. I will check around. What way could there possibly be? If you hadn't offended Montgomery Enterprises, we wouldn't be in this mess. Margaret poured out her resentment. If we knew that bitch Eleanor was Montgomery blood, we never would have treated her like that. Julian hung up the phone and paced frantically around his office. What should he do? He had no solutions either. Eleanor was shaking so many of his weaknesses that he was helpless. He picked up his phone and called Eleanor. It rang. Hello. Eleanor's dry voice answered. Ellie, it's me. Julian took a deep breath. Ellie, please, let's meet and talk rationally. I will agree to whatever conditions you want. Please, just stop here. Don't do this anymore. A brief silence followed on the other end. Julian. Eleanor spoke up. Do you know why I haven't signed the divorce papers yet? Julian froze. I was waiting, she said. Waiting for you to come to me yourself and say with your own mouth that you were wrong. Julian spoke desperately. Yes, I was wrong. I am truly a dead man walking. Ellie, I am sorry. I shouldn't have treated you like that. Can you please forgive me just this once? Let's start over from the beginning. Eleanor laughed. At the sound of her laughter, he got goosebumps again. Julian, do you know? I waited a very long time to hear you say that. Then, are you forgiving me? Forgive? Eleanor sneered coldly. Do you think a simple, I am sorry, ends everything? Does that one sentence fix your mother coming with $50,000 to insult me into signing? Does that one sentence erase the fact that while I was giving birth alone in the hospital, you were holding another woman? Julian opened his mouth but had nothing to say. Listen carefully, Julian. I didn't wait for today just to hear your apology. I waited to declare that things between us are completely over. I will sign the divorce papers. I am taking the child. I do not care what happens to you or Pierce Holdings anymore, but don't think you can sleep soundly at night either. The call disconnected. Julian stood blankly holding his phone. Over. After trampling on him so ruthlessly, she was saying it was over? He tried calling back, but her phone was turned off. That night, Eleanor signed the divorce papers. Nathan had someone deliver them to the Pierce family. Receiving the documents, Margaret was left speechless. It was clearly stated in the paperwork. Custody belongs to Eleanor Montgomery, and Julian Pierce is to pay $5,000 a month in child support until the child becomes an adult. It was also specified that she would not take a single penny of Julian's assets. She did not want money. She only wanted her child and Julian's destruction. Having signed the papers, Eleanor stood by the window and looked at the night sky. In her arms, Leo was sleeping soundly. From now on, it will just be Mommy and you living happily. We are starting over. Mrs. Montgomery, your packing is finished, the nanny said as she walked in. Eleanor nodded. She took one last look at the room she had stayed in for the past few weeks. This was where she was reborn. Starting tomorrow, she was no longer the lady of Pierce Holdings. She was Eleanor Montgomery, the only daughter of Montgomery Enterprises, and Leo's mother. The road ahead was long, but she was no longer afraid. She had a family that cared for her behind her, and a child to protect in front of her. As for Julian Pierce, whether he ruined himself or not, she would just leave him be. Chapter 6. The Fall and Awakening. After visiting the Montgomery estate, Julian became a complete wreck. The company was beyond saving. His father was under arrest, and his mother was crying every day. On top of that, Chloe was throwing tantrums, calling him useless. He had never hit rock bottom like this in his life. That night, he sat alone in his office, drinking. Empty bottles piled up, but the knot in his chest would not loosen. Then, his phone rang. It was his mother. "Son, come quickly. Something terrible has happened at the house." Julian sobered up halfway. "What is it?" "Chloe. That bitch stole everything from the house and ran away." Julian hurriedly drove to the family estate. Opening the door, he found Margaret collapsed on the sofa, wailing. "What happened?" "That bitch suddenly showed up looking for you, and when I told her you weren't here, she said she would wait in my room for a bit. Then she left soon after. Later, I checked, and all the cash and watches in my drawer were gone." Julian froze. He quickly walked into the bedroom and opened the drawers. They were completely empty. $50,000 in cash, Rolexes, Patek Philippe's, easily $300,000 worth of items had vanished without a trace. He tried calling Chloe, but her phone was turned off. He smashed his phone against the bed. "Chloe, that absolute bitch." He abandoned his devoted wife for this woman, only for her to betray him and rob him blind. Beside him, Margaret wailed. "I told you from the start she was bad news. You didn't listen, and now look what happened. The woman ran away. The money is stolen. The company is on the verge of bankruptcy. What am I supposed to do? Stop crying." Julian screamed at her. Startled by her son's explosive anger, Margaret began wailing even louder. Julian left his mother behind and drove to Chloe's apartment. The door was unlocked, and the place was a mess. The closet doors were wide open, and all her clothes and shoes were gone. The landlord, who was cleaning, saw him and said, "You looking for that girl? She moved out this afternoon. Looks like she fled in the middle of the night. She is a month behind on rent." Julian stood in the middle of the empty room and let out a hollow laugh. The price for abandoning a wife who truly loved him and making an enemy of the massive Montgomery Enterprises was this. She cheated on him and ran off with his money. The conclusion to the true love he so desperately craved was this comical. He collapsed onto the sofa and buried his face in his hands. A long while later, he called Secretary Marcus. "Marcus, find out where Eleanor is right now." After a brief silence on the other end, Marcus spoke. "Mr. Pierce, we already have news about Mrs. Montgomery. Where is she?" "There is a press conference being held at the Plaza Hotel in New York the day after tomorrow. It is an event to announce her official return to Montgomery Enterprises. And the merger and acquisition of Pierce Holdings will also be officially announced there." Julian sprang from the sofa. "Merger and acquisition? What are you talking about?" Marcus let out a deep sigh. "Montgomery Enterprises has already secretly acquired 35% of our shares, becoming the largest shareholder. They will officially confirm this fact at the press conference the day after tomorrow." Julian's vision went dark. Securing 35% of the shares? When did this happen? Why had he not noticed at all? And Mr. Pierce, there is one more thing. Marcus's voice trembled slightly. "The Montgomery side has officially invited you to the press conference." Julian was stunned. "Invited me? To watch them toast to their victory? To watch how glorious Eleanor has become?" "Mrs. Montgomery sent the invitation herself," Marcus added. The invitation only had one sentence written on it. "Come and see exactly how the woman you abandoned is living." He gritted his teeth. He had to go. The day of the press conference. The ballroom at the Plaza Hotel was packed. It was filled with influential business figures and journalists. On the giant screen read, Official Return of Montgomery Enterprises Vice President Eleanor Montgomery and Business Vision Presentation. Julian found a seat in the corner. The whispers of the people around him assaulted his ears. Is that Montgomery heiress really Julian Pierce's ex-wife? Yeah, I heard she suffered unbelievable humiliation in the Pierce household. Teask, Julian Pierce must have been blind. He abandoned the only daughter of Montgomery Enterprises for that trashy actress. He must be beating the ground in regret right now. I heard Pierce Holdings is completely going under too. He reaps what he sows. Julian's face burned, but he couldn't leave his seat. He had to stay and see exactly what Eleanor was going to do. At 10:00 a.m. sharp, the event began. Following the MC's brief introduction, the microphone echoed. Next, we welcome Vice President Eleanor Montgomery of Montgomery Enterprises. Amidst thunderous applause, Julian looked up at the stage. Eleanor walked out from backstage. Dressed in a crisp white suit, her hair neatly pinned up, wearing light makeup, she was dazzlingly radiant. The pale, pitiful woman he saw at the maternity retreat 2 weeks ago was nowhere to be found. Standing center stage, she smiled confidently at the audience. Hello, I am Eleanor Montgomery. Thank you all for being here today. Another round of applause erupted. Julian sat in the corner, staring at her. She had changed. She had changed completely. In the past, she always kept her head down, anxious about walking on eggshells. But the woman on stage now was proud, brimming with confidence, her eyes filled with firm resolve. The reason I invited you all today is to make 2 major announcements. Eleanor's voice rang through the hall over the microphone. First, as of today, I am officially returning to Montgomery Enterprises and taking on the role of vice president. Applause. Second. She paused for a moment. As of yesterday, Montgomery Enterprises completed the acquisition of shares in Pierce Holdings. Starting today, Pierce Holdings will be incorporated as a subsidiary of Montgomery Enterprises. The hall buzzed with murmurs. Rumors had been circulating, but having it confirmed at an official event was a massive shock. The once powerful Pierce family dynasty had changed owners just like that. A Q&A session with reporters followed. Journalists scrambled to raise their hands. Vice President Montgomery, it is known that you were the wife of Pierce Holdings CEO Julian Pierce. Did personal grudges play a role in this merger? Eleanor smiled and looked at the reporter. A personal grudge? What an interesting question, she continued. It is true that Julian Pierce and I were married, but that marriage is already over. This acquisition was a purely business decision. We simply highly valued the potential of Pierce Holdings. Another reporter stood up. Did you personally leak the audio file containing the verbal abuse from the Pierce Holdings chairman's wife that recently spread online? Eleanor nodded. Yes, that is correct. I recorded that myself in the hospital on the 3rd day after I gave birth. At the time, my mother-in-law brought a lawyer and aggressively demanded I sign a divorce agreement. The hall buzzed again. So you did not sign it then? No, Eleanor cut in. I asked Julian Pierce to come and meet me in person, but he never came. Instead, he went on a romantic getaway to Street Barts with his girlfriend. Julian, sitting in the corner, hung his head low. He couldn't meet anyone's eyes. Then, Vice President, how do you evaluate that past marriage? Eleanor was silent for a moment. That marriage, she began slowly, was the darkest 3 years of my life. I thought it was love, but in the end, I was nothing more than a pawn on a chessboard. It was all because of a psychic's claim that my astrology chart would bring luck to their family. Gasps of shock echoed through the hall, but I do not regret it, Eleanor looked up. Because thanks to that marriage, I gained my son, who is my entire world. She stared directly into the cameras and spoke firmly. As for Julian Pierce, I wish him happiness. After all, we are complete strangers now. Having finished speaking, she gave a light bow and disappeared backstage. Leaving behind the roaring applause, Julian, sitting in the corner, couldn't take his eyes off her retreating figure until she vanished. Complete strangers. She said they were complete strangers. He tried to stand up and chase after her, but his feet felt glued to the floor. Sir, the event is over. Please exit the venue. A staff member approached and said. Kicked out of the hotel, Julian watched the people passing by. Not knowing where he should go, he lost his company. His family was shattered. He lost his son, and he lost her. He pulled his phone from his pocket and searched for Eleanor's number. He hesitated for a long time before finally pressing the call button. It rang. Hello. It was Eleanor's voice. It is me, Julian. A brief silence followed on the line. What is it? Ellie, I want to see you. See me? Eleanor scoffed. You were at the press conference. Didn't you see everything you wanted to see? Ellie, I was wrong. I committed a deadly sin. Can you please forgive me just this once? Let's start over from the beginning. Start over. Eleanor's voice grew icy. Julian, it seems you still do not grasp the situation. Things have been over between us for a long time. But the child needs a father. A father? Eleanor sneered. What right do you have to act like a father? When the child was born, when he was sick, when he was up all night, where were you? Now you say the child needs a father? It is not even funny. Ellie, that is enough. Do not call me any more, Eleanor said firmly. We have no reason to contact each other anymore. This is completely over. The call disconnected. Julian stood like an idiot at the hotel entrance, staring down at his phone. Over. She said it was over, but pretending not to take anything from him, she took the child and swallowed the company whole. This was the end? He looked up at the cloudy sky. Suddenly, he felt madly exhausted. Chapter 7, The Beginning of Karma and the Final Meeting. After the press conference, Eleanor's life entered a completely new chapter. She officially participated in the management of Montgomery Enterprises. Under Nathan's guidance, she began learning corporate management, and she absorbed it very quickly. Nathan often praised her, saying, "You are a natural-born businesswoman." The baby also grew quickly. Plump and fair, Leo smiled exceptionally well. When Eleanor returned home from work and showed her face, the baby would smile brightly and kick his arms and legs. That sight melted away all the fatigue of the day. It was a rich and peaceful life, but Eleanor knew there was still an untied knot. The issue with Julian's side. The company had passed over to Montgomery Enterprises, but Julian himself had not yet paid the proper price for his sins. And neither had his venomous mother, Margaret Pierce. She didn't plan on going out of her way to seek crazy revenge, but she didn't intend to let them off easily either. That night, Nathan came to her room holding a document. Ellie, take a look at this. Flipping through the document, Eleanor's eyes widened. It was a formal criminal complaint. It detailed how Julian's father, Robert Pierce, had not only paid a $5 million bribe for real estate development rights years ago, but was also implicated in a fatal incident. A fatal incident? You mean he killed someone? Nathan sighed and said, There was a small factory owner holding out on the planned development site. Robert hired thugs to kick him out, and the factory owner was beaten to death. The incident was covered up as an accidental death and buried. Eleanor's hand holding the document trembled slightly. She never imagined such bloody sins lay at the foundation of the Pierce family. Nathan, where did you get this? Did Victoria Lawson give this to you? Tori dug into their background for a long time, Nathan said. She eventually tracked down a witness who was at the scene of the incident back then, and that witness agreed to testify in court. Eleanor remained silent for a moment. What happens if we release this? If we release this, Robert Pierce is finished forever. Julian will likely not escape joint responsibility either, and the Pierce family's reputation will be dragged through the mud. I will leave the decision up to you. Eleanor was lost in thought for a long time. The humiliation she suffered in the Pierce household, Margaret's vicious face, Julian's cold stare, and her child who had not seen his father's face even once since birth. Release it. She looked up. If they committed a sin, they must be punished. The next day, this criminal complaint was formally submitted to the authorities. 3 days later, Robert Pierce was suddenly arrested. Once the news broke, public outrage boiled over uncontrollably. Bribery, covering up a murder for hire, forcing a daughter-in-law to be used for luck, the son's affair, and his romantic getaway. As the ugly true faces of the Pierce family were exposed day after day, the world was horrified. Julian became the neighborhood punching bag. At the company, people pointed fingers at him. Outside, people secretly filmed him, and reporters camped outside his house. Unable to handle this massive shock, Margaret collapsed and was hospitalized. Even lying in her hospital bed, she didn't stop her malicious curses. That bitch ruined everything. I said from the beginning she was a jinx. Julian sat by her hospital bed, listening in silence. What could he say? They had brought this entirely upon themselves. If only he had been a little kinder to Eleanor back then. If his mother hadn't acted so viciously, if he just hadn't gone to street, Bart's with Chloe. Son, is there really no way? Margaret grabbed his hand. We cannot just let your father rot in jail like this. The Pierce family cannot end like this. Julian smiled bitterly and shook his head. There is no way now. What do you mean there is no way? Go to her and beg. She used to love you, didn't she? Beg her to spare us just this once. Beg her for leniency. Mother. Julian stood up. Please face reality. That woman hates us to the bone right now. She would never help us. Margaret stared blankly at her son. It was the first time she had seen such deep despair on his face. Leaving the hospital room, Julian stood blankly in the hallway. Just then, a call came from an unknown number. Hello, Julian. Long time no see. It is me. Julian gripped his phone tightly. How dare this bitch call me? Oh, don't act so hostile. Chloe's voice had a hint of laughter mixed in. I called to give you some good news. You know Preston, right? We have officially decided to get back together. He says he is going to marry me. Julian paused for a moment before bursting into a scoff. He laughed like a madman. Chloe, is your brain rotting? A guy like Preston Cole III is going to marry a whore like you? Why wouldn't he? Chloe said triumphantly. I already got proposed to, and I have a diamond ring on my finger. Julian was about to snap back something more, but suddenly felt it was all pointless. This woman was no longer someone who had anything to do with him. Sure, congratulations on the wedding. He hung up. Chloe called back, but he blocked the number. Standing in the hospital corridor, he suddenly felt everything was incredibly comical. His life was truly a complete failure from the very bottom. His wife left, he lost his son, his company was taken, his father was arrested, and his mother was bedridden. Even the woman he believed was his true love was a con artist who thoroughly deceived him. Is this the karma returning to him? Eleanor also quickly heard the news about the Pierce family. Margaret's hospitalization, Robert's arrest, Julian being surrounded on all sides. Nathan asked her, how about it? Do you feel relieved now? Eleanor shook her head. Relieved or not, it's just them facing the consequences of the paths they chose. Then what do you plan to do from now on? Live my life. Eleanor looked at Nathan and said, Leo is still young. I need to raise him well. And I will work even harder to learn the company business so I don't fall behind you. Nathan smiled warmly. Right, that is my sister Eleanor. A few days later, a letter arrived for Eleanor. It was written by Julian. Ellie, I know you will not forgive me. I know I am a bastard who doesn't deserve forgiveness. I have just one favor to ask. Please let me see the baby's face just once. I will only look from very far away. I won't talk, and I won't interfere. If you just let me see him once, I will never bother you again. Eleanor held the letter and stayed silent for a long time. Then she showed it to Nathan. What should I do? Nathan asked. I don't know. Eleanor said. Even so, he is Leo's father. But that man doesn't deserve the right. Ellie, this is a problem for you to decide. Whatever choice you make, your brother supports you. After agonizing over it for a long time, Eleanor wrote a reply. This Saturday at 10:00 a.m. Central Park. You can only look. No holding him, no talking. Saturday morning, the weather was sunny. Eleanor walked alongside the nanny pushing the stroller, heading toward Central Park. In the distance, she saw Julian standing at the meeting spot. He looked noticeably gaunt. He had a scruffy beard and was wearing worn-out clothes. The majestic presence of the former Pierce Holdings CEO was nowhere to be found. Eleanor approached and stopped in front of him. As soon as Julian saw her, his eyes turned red. Ellie, do not speak. Eleanor cut him off coldly. Just look at the child. The nanny stopped the stroller. Julian approached and looked down at the small baby under the stroller's canopy. The child was fast asleep, oblivious to the world. Seeing his slightly parted lips, his two tiny fists clenched by his head. Seeing that adorable face, Julian eventually couldn't hold back and let the tears fall. I am seeing my son for the first time, he muttered in a hoarse voice. His name is Leo, Eleanor replied. Leo. Julian chewed on the name. Julian crouched down, looked at the baby in the stroller, and whispered, Son, Daddy is sorry. Daddy is worse than a beast, so I do not deserve to be your dad. Listen to your mom from now on, and do not ever grow up to be a guy like me. He couldn't take his eyes off the child for a long time. Eleanor stood nearby, watching the man. She felt neither hatred nor love. She just felt like she was looking at a complete stranger. "Time is up," she said. Julian stood up and wiped his tears. "Ellie, thank you." "No need to thank me. This is the last time." Julian nodded. "Ah." He turned to leave, then suddenly stopped. "Ellie, there is something I need to tell you." "What is it?" "Chloe is pregnant." Eleanor froze. "It's my child." Julian smiled bitterly. "That woman cheated on me with Preston Cole III, but when Preston said he wouldn't take responsibility, she came back to me, claiming it was my baby. Of course, I didn't fall for it." Eleanor said nothing. "I know you won't believe me, but it is the truth," Julian said. "Since you left, I haven't laid a finger on that woman. I don't know whose kid it is, but it is absolutely not mine." After a moment, Eleanor said, "That has nothing to do with me." "I know." Julian nodded. "I just wanted you to know that I am not the kind of person she claims I am." He turned and walked away. Eleanor watched his back disappear into the crowd for a long time. "Ma'am, should we head back?" the nanny asked carefully. Eleanor nodded. "My family." Inside the stroller, the baby woke up. "Wah!" As the crying burst out, Eleanor hurriedly picked up the baby and patted him. "Oh, do not cry. Mommy is right here." The baby's crying subsided. Looking down at the child, Eleanor felt a corner of her heart warm up. Having this child was enough. Julian Pierce. That was all just the past. Chapter 8. A New Beginning and an Unexpected Reunion. After seeing the child, Julian became a different person. He no longer resented the world or begged others for help. He calmly cooperated with the police investigations, helped clean up the mess at the ruined company, and devotedly cared for his bedridden mother. When someone asked if he had regrets, he said he did. He regretted not realizing his foolishness sooner, and he regretted not treating Eleanor better. But what was the use of regretting now? One day, he received a phone call. It was Eleanor's brother, Nathan. "Julian Pierce, come to the Montgomery Enterprises headquarters tomorrow at 10:00 a.m. We have something to discuss." Julian was puzzled. "What is this about?" "You will find out when you get here." The next morning at 10:00 a.m., Julian was guided into a conference room at Montgomery Enterprises. Inside the conference room sat Nathan and several executives in suits. "Have a seat." Nathan pointed to the chair opposite him. As Julian sat down, Nathan turned on the projector. A document was displayed on the screen. "The reason I called you today is to discuss the future management policy of Pierce Holdings, which has now been incorporated as our subsidiary." Julian nodded. "Go ahead." "Although Pierce Holdings has been acquired by Montgomery Enterprises, we do not plan on completely replacing the management team. We have decided to keep you as the CEO of Pierce Holdings." Julian couldn't believe his ears. "Keep me? Why? Me?" Nathan looked him straight in the eye. "I didn't make the decision. Ellie did." Julian's eyes widened further. "Ellie did? Why?" "Because she acknowledged that while you were absolute scum as a human being, your business acumen is quite good." Nathan said. "Most importantly, Leo needs a father. Maybe not right now, but later when he grows up." She said if you can truly turn over a new leaf and become a decent human being, she is willing to let you see the child. Julian's eyes welled up with red. Did Ellie really say that? Nathan nodded and pushed a document toward him. "There are conditions. Sign this agreement." The terms of the agreement were strict. Julian would serve as the CEO of Pierce Holdings and receive an industry average salary, but he would not hold even 1% equity in Pierce Holdings. All financial executions would be strictly audited by Montgomery Enterprises. If he was caught in even a single act of corruption, he would be immediately fired and permanently banned from seeing his child. "Will you sign?" Nathan asked. Julian looked down at the agreement for a moment before picking up a pen. "I will." He signed it without hesitation. "Please tell Ellie." "Thank you so much." Nathan nodded. "There is no need to say thank you. Living like a proper human being from now on is the way you repay that child." Julian stood up, bowed politely, and left the conference room. Nathan watched him leave, let out a light sigh, and picked up his phone. "Ellie, I honestly don't know if the decision you made was the right one." Through the receiver, Eleanor's voice could be heard. "I am not sure either, but I wanted to give Leo a chance. If that man really changes, later when Leo asks about his dad, I can tell him, 'Your dad changed into a very good person.'" You are too soft-hearted. I am not soft, Eleanor replied. I just don't want to leave any regrets about my choices. Time flowed relentlessly. Julian diligently went to work, arriving early every morning and leaving late at night, perfectly normalizing Pierce Holdings' operations. Under his management, Pierce Holdings gradually began to regain its vitality. Discharged from the hospital, Margaret no longer acted as arrogantly as she used to. She occasionally muttered that she wanted to see her grandson, but Julian cut her off firmly. Mother, do not be greedy. You should be grateful that Ellie even accepted me back this much. Do not even think about upsetting her. Margaret never said another word. News of Chloe occasionally reached them as well. Abandoned by Preston Cole III, she had wandered around with her pregnant belly causing scenes until she was forcibly deported abroad by the Cole family. No one knew what happened to the baby in her belly. A few months later, Eleanor was also cruising along a solid career path at the company. One day, Nathan called her in. Ellie, Father is getting older, and he wants to hand all the management over to me now. I want you to officially take on the role of vice president and lead Montgomery Enterprises alongside me. Eleanor was surprised. Nathan, it hasn't been that long since I started learning the business. How can I take on the vice president role? Will I do a good job? Why wouldn't you? Nathan smiled. The executives have all acknowledged the results you've shown over the past few months. Plus, I will be right beside you watching your back. So what is there to worry about? Eleanor thought about it for a moment, then nodded. All right, I will do it. And so, Eleanor was officially inaugurated as the vice president of Montgomery Enterprises. On the day of the inauguration, standing at the podium receiving applause from countless people, she was suddenly swept up in a strange emotion. Just a year ago, she lay in a cold delivery room, waiting in despair for a husband who would never come. 1 year later, she was standing here, rising as a new star in the business world. Life was truly bizarre. Returning to her office after the ceremony, she found a large bouquet of flowers on her desk. There was no card or name tag. Who sent this? She asked her secretary, who replied she didn't know. Looking down at the bouquet, Eleanor suddenly had an inkling and sent a text to Julian. Did you send the flowers? A reply came immediately. Yes. Congratulations on your inauguration. Eleanor felt a strange mix of emotions looking at those few words. As she put her phone down to look at some documents, another notification pinged. Ellie, can I ask for one favor? Next Saturday is Leo's first birthday. Can I go too? I will just watch from far away. I promise I won't interfere. Eleanor stared at the message for a long time before replying. Come to the house at 3:00 p.m. on Saturday. Saturday at 2:50 p.m., Julian arrived exactly in front of the Montgomery estate. In his hand was a large shopping bag containing toys. The door opened, and Nathan came out. You are here? Come in. The living room was warmly decorated with bright balloons and ribbons. Eleanor sat on the sofa holding Leo, who was dressed neatly in a little formal suit. The chubby, plump baby was chewing on a toy and babbling. Standing in the entryway, looking at that small back, Julian's eyes welled up with tears again. Ellie, he called out in a cracked voice. Eleanor looked up. Come in. Julian walked over and sat on the sofa opposite her. He carefully offered the shopping bag. I bought this for Leo. Eleanor took it and checked inside. It was a premium toy car. Thank you. No problem. The living room was silent, save for the sound of the baby's babbling. Julian couldn't take his eyes off the child. The more he looked, the more adorable he was. He looks like you. He spoke up. Eleanor paused, then smiled. Everyone says he looks like Nathan. His eyes look like mine, and his nose looks like mine. But his mouth looks like yours. Eleanor looked down at the child without saying anything else. After a long while, Julian stood up. Ellie, I should get going now. Already? Eleanor looked up. Yeah, I just wanted to see his face once. Julian looked at her and said, Thank you for letting me. Thank you so much. Just as he turned to leave. Wait a minute. Eleanor stopped him. When Julian looked back, Eleanor handed the baby to the nanny, stood up, and approached him. Julian, she said, you really have changed a lot over the past year. Julian smiled bitterly. People have to grow, even if it was too late. Eleanor stared at him intently. This man really had changed. His former arrogant and insolent demeanor was gone, replaced by a much calmer presence. There was something in his eyes that wasn't there before. From now on, she said, You can come see Leo once a month. But you can only look. You cannot take him anywhere. Julian froze. Then he started laughing like crazy. He laughed as tears poured down his face. Ellie, thank you. Thank you so much. Eleanor averted her gaze. You don't need to thank me. Thank yourself. If you hadn't changed for the better, I wouldn't have allowed it either. Julian nodded vigorously. I know. I will keep that in mind. Do not worry. I will never disappoint you. After he left, Eleanor watched his car drive away from the gates. The nanny standing nearby said, Ma'am, he seems like a very warm-hearted person. Eleanor shook her head. It is not because he is warm-hearted. It is because I want to let Leo know that his dad is not a bad person. And also because I don't want to leave any regrets for myself. Chapter 9. A reformed man's patience time flew like an arrow, and another half a year passed. Julian came to see Leo religiously every month. He never stayed long. He would briefly greet the child and then leave. He spoke noticeably less, and never made any other demands. Eleanor slowly realized that he had truly changed. Once, Leo had a severe fever, and they had to go to the emergency room in the middle of the night. She was struggling alone, but when Julian heard the news, he rushed over instantly, stayed by their side all night, and handled all the paperwork for her. Another time, Leo tripped and scraped his knee badly while playing in the park, crying loudly. Julian, who happened to be nearby, dashed over, picked the child up, and comforted him for a long time. Seeing his clumsy but sincere efforts, Eleanor felt her heart soften a little, but she never showed it on the outside. One day, while in a meeting at the company, Eleanor received a call from an unknown number. Hello? Is this Eleanor Montgomery? Yes. Who is calling? This is Bellevue Hospital in New York. Do you happen to know a Chloe Harper? Eleanor paused. Yes, I know her. What is the matter? The patient's condition is currently very critical. She keeps calling your name, Miss Montgomery. Could you possibly come by? Hanging up the phone, Eleanor was dumbfounded. Why is Chloe looking for me? After hesitating for a moment, she eventually headed to the hospital. The sight of Chloe lying in the hospital bed was shocking. Her face was pale, reduced to skin and bones. The glamorous appearance of her past was completely gone. Seeing Eleanor enter, Chloe struggled to sit up but broke into a coughing fit. Eleanor approached and sat on the edge of the bed. What happened? Chloe looked at her with red eyes. Eleanor. They say I am dying. Eleanor was surprised. Chloe stammered as she confessed everything that happened over the past year and a half. Abandoned by Preston Cole III, she was practically chased out of the country, but she discovered she had an ectopic pregnancy while abroad. She had emergency surgery due to severe bleeding and barely survived, but her body was completely ruined. Running out of money and with no one to care for her, she became an undocumented immigrant until she was eventually deported back to the U.S. After returning, she ran around everywhere trying to borrow money for medical bills, but no one gave her a second glance. The people who used to suck up to her in the past all cut contact. Pushed to the edge of a cliff, the only place she could go was a public hospital like Bellevue. I know how much you hate me, Chloe cried, tears dripping down. But I really had nowhere else to lean on. I have no blood relatives left in the world, and you were the only person I knew anymore. Looking down at her, Eleanor didn't know what to feel. This woman stole her husband and subjected her to indelible humiliation. Seeing her meet such a miserable end, she should have felt vindicated, but she wasn't happy at all. What do you want from me? Eleanor asked. I didn't call you to ask for help. Chloe shook her head. I just wanted to say I am sorry, just once. I committed a deadly sin against you. Eleanor stayed silent for a moment before speaking. Do you know? There was a time I hated you enough to want to kill you. But not anymore. Because you aren't worth it. Chloe's sobbing grew louder. Eleanor stood up. I will pay your outstanding hospital bills on my way out. Once you recover, get discharged and go wherever you want. Just never appear in front of me again. As she was about to leave the room, Chloe called out desperately. Wait! Eleanor looked back. Julian, how is he doing now? Is he doing well? Does he resent me too? He won't resent you, Eleanor replied nonchalantly. Because he probably thinks the same way I do. You aren't even worth resenting. She left the hospital room. Chloe lay face down on the bed, crying endlessly. Leaving the hospital, Eleanor took a deep breath. The sky was blindingly blue, and the wind was soft. Suddenly, she felt her heart become much lighter. The resentment, the anger, the knots of the past that had weighed her down seemed to blow away in the wind. A month later, a discharged Chloe showed up at the Montgomery estate. She said she wanted to deliver a thank you greeting in person, but Eleanor refused to see her. The guard passed on a message instead. She said a thank you greeting is unnecessary. Just live your life properly from now on. Chloe bowed deeply outside the gates and left. After that, no one ever saw her again. There were rampant rumors that she moved down south, joined a convent, or died, but Eleanor considered whatever she was doing to be none of her business. Leo's second birthday. Eleanor threw a modest birthday party at home, and Julian attended holding a large cake. Now toddler walking, Leo waddled and ran around the living room. Julian followed closely behind him, worried he might fall. Sitting on the sofa watching them, Eleanor unconsciously smiled. Nathan came over and sat next to her. "Ellie, do you not hate that guy anymore?" Eleanor thought about it carefully before answering. "Regardless of whether I hate him or not, it just feels like it is all in the past now." "So you forgave him?" Eleanor stared at Julian's back and said, "Nathan, do you know what forgiveness is? It doesn't mean not hating them. It means you are ready to start over. Then are you ready?" Eleanor didn't answer. A moment later, Julian approached holding Leo. "Ellie, Leo says he wants Mommy to hold him." Eleanor took the child, and Leo kissed his mom on the cheek. "Mommy, Daddy said he would buy me a big car this big." Eleanor glared at Julian. Julian laughed awkwardly and scratched the back of his head. "I was just saying it." "Fine, buy it for him then." Eleanor chuckled. Julian paused, then flashed a bright smile. That night, after the party ended, Julian walked Eleanor to the door of her room. Standing at the door, he suddenly spoke up. "Ellie, can I say just one thing?" "What is it?" "I truly love you." Julian lowered his head. "I know I have no right to say this, but I really wanted to tell you. Hovering around you and Leo for the past year and a half, I felt deep in my bones what a real family is." Eleanor just listened quietly. "I am not asking you to forgive me, or to take me back right now," Julian continued. "I just wanted you to know, whether you push me away or accept me, for the rest of my life, I am going to treat you and Leo incredibly well. I will keep waiting." Eleanor looked at him for a long time. "Julian," she spoke, "do you know why I allowed you to come see Leo?" "No. It was because I wanted to let Leo know his dad isn't a bad person," Eleanor said. "And I also wanted to give myself a chance." Julian's eyes widened. "But you only get one chance. If you repeat the same mistakes as before, I will make sure you never see Leo's face again." Julian's eyes turned red. "Ellie, I promise. I will never disappoint you." He turned to leave but hesitated. "Wait a minute," Eleanor called him. When Julian looked back, Eleanor hesitated before saying, "Next weekend. Leo says he wants to go to the zoo. If you have time, do you want to go together?" Julian froze. Then he smiled brightly like a little kid. "I have time. I absolutely have time. I will go." After he left, Eleanor stood by the door watching his retreating figure, feeling a warm, soft feeling in a corner of her heart. Maybe, just maybe, life really can start over. Chapter 10. The Queen's Perfect New Life. The zoo outing became a turning point in Julian and Eleanor's relationship. That day, Leo was thrilled, holding his mom's hand in his left and his dad's hand in his right, chattering all day long. Sweating, Julian explained what giraffes ate and the names of the animals. Even though his explanations were full of mistakes, Leo listened with sparkling eyes. From that day on, the number of times Julian came to see Leo increased significantly. On weekends, he would take the child to the park, and on weekday evenings, they would eat dinner together. Eleanor no longer pushed him away. Sometimes, she would pull him in and serve him dinner. Nathan saw this and slyly asked, "Are you two getting back together?" Eleanor shook her head. "No, I just increased the amount of time he spends with Leo." "Then what about you?" Eleanor smiled faintly. "I will leave it up to fate." Time flowed smoothly. Julian focused on managing Pierce Holdings, and the company's performance recovered noticeably. He no longer wandered outside showing off like he did in the past. He had become a much more mature and grounded person. When people around him asked if he planned on getting back together with Eleanor, he just smiled. But Eleanor knew. She knew how much agonizing effort he was putting in. Every morning, he left her a message asking if she had eaten breakfast or if she was tired from working late. He memorized her birthday, Leo's vaccination dates, the foods she liked, and the foods she hated. He wasn't the Julian who only knew how to take. He had learned how to give. Nathan sometimes joked. These days, that bastard Julian has become our house's unpaid laborer and exclusive chauffeur. Eleanor only laughed and didn't reply, but she knew the sincerity he showed went far beyond that. One evening, while Eleanor was working late at the office, she received an urgent phone call. It was Julian. "Ellie, can you come to the hospital right now?" Eleanor's heart dropped. "Why? What happened?" "My mother. I don't think she will make it through the day." When Eleanor arrived at the hospital emergency room, Margaret Pierce had already been taken into the resuscitation room. Julian was sitting on a bench in the hallway, his head buried in his hands. Eleanor approached and sat next to him. "What happened?" Julian looked up. His eyes were bloodshot. "Acute myocardial infarction. The doctor says there is no hope." Eleanor stayed silent. A moment later, the doors to the resuscitation room opened, and a doctor came out, taking off his mask. "Family members?" Julian jumped up. "Yes, that is me. We have passed the critical moment for now, but her condition is very poor. Her heart could stop again at any moment, so you should prepare yourself." Julian nodded and entered the hospital room. Margaret lay there with tubes all over her body, her face ashen. Seeing her son enter, tears streamed down Margaret's face. "Mother, I am here." Julian approached and held her hand. Margaret's gaze shifted toward Eleanor, who stood near the doorway. Her lips trembled. "Ellie. Ellie came too?" Eleanor stepped closer to the bed. Margaret looked at her and shed even more tears. "Ellie, I am sorry. I am so sorry." Eleanor said nothing. I was a terrible person." Margaret gasped for breath as she spoke. "During the 3 years you were my daughter-in-law, I never once offered a warm word and only abused you. I threw $50,000 at you and kicked you out, so I deserve to be punished by heaven." Eleanor looked down at her with a heavy heart. "Ellie, I have just one favor to ask before I die." Margaret pleaded desperately. "After I die, can you let my Julian see Leo often? Julian is not inherently a bad kid. It is because I raised him wrong." Eleanor looked down at the old woman for a long time before speaking. "Do not say anything else and focus on your treatment." Margaret shook her head. "I know I only have a few days left. Ellie, please. Just grant my last request." Eleanor was silent for a moment before nodding. "I understand." A faint smile spread across Margaret's lips. As that smile faded, the hand she was tightly gripping suddenly fell limp. "Mother," Julian wailed. Doctors and nurses rushed in and attempted CPR again, but this time, her heart did not restart. Margaret Pierce had passed away. On the day of the funeral, Eleanor visited the wake. Wearing black mourning clothes, she stood silently watching Julian, who knelt before the portrait, wiping away tears. Held in the nanny's arms, Leo looked around, not understanding what was happening. After the funeral, Julian came to see Eleanor. "Ellie, thank you for coming today. It is only right that I come." Julian's eyes turned red again. "You heard everything my mother said before she died, right? I know she doesn't deserve your forgiveness, but I still want to apologize again on her behalf." "It is all in the past," Eleanor said calmly. Julian nodded and turned to leave. "Wait a minute," Eleanor called out to him. When Julian looked back, she said, "Your mother was right. You are not a bad person. If you want to see Leo from now on, you can come often any time." Julian stood blankly, then burst into a chuckle before shedding tears. Thank you so much, Ellie." After that day, Julian spent even more time at the Montgomery estate. He took Leo out to play, fixed broken toys, and sat side by side in the living room watching cartoons. Watching this, Eleanor felt the iron walls in her heart slowly crumbling. That night, after Leo fell asleep, Julian sought out Eleanor. "Ellie, I bought a house." "A house? Where?" "A 5-minute walk from where you live in Tribeca," Julian said. "So whenever Leo misses his dad, I can run over any time." Eleanor said nothing. "I know I don't have the right to say this, but I really wanted to ask you once." Julian's voice trembled. "Could you really give me just one more chance?" Eleanor stared at him for a long time. "Julian, do you know? I swore a vow in the past that I would never, ever forgive you in this lifetime." Julian nodded. "I know. But over the past few years, I watched you change little by little. I saw you being utterly devoted to Leo, and I saw you grieving when your mother passed away. And while watching that, I thought, people really can change." Julian's eyes sparkled. "Ellie, does that mean?" "It means I don't hate you anymore," Eleanor said. but I am not ready to start over yet. Julian smiled brightly and nodded. I understand. I won't rush you. I can wait as long as it takes. Eleanor smiled back at him. You should go now. You have to drop Leo off at preschool early tomorrow. Yeah, I will go. Julian left. Eleanor stood by the window, watching his back as he walked down the night street. Her phone pinged. It was Nathan. Well, have you softened up a bit? Eleanor typed a reply. I don't know yet. I need to watch him more. Our sister is too soft-hearted. Eleanor smiled silently at the text. Have I softened? Maybe so, but she wanted to believe. She wanted to believe that people could be given a second chance. 3 years later, Montgomery Enterprises headquarters. In the spacious and bright vice president's office, Eleanor was reviewing documents. The door burst open, and a little boy ran inside. Mommy? Eleanor looked up, smiled brightly, and opened her arms wide. Leo rushed into her embrace and planted a big kiss on her cheek. Mommy, Daddy says he is taking me to Universal Studios today. You are coming too, right? Eleanor lightly pinched the boy's nose. Mommy hasn't finished her work yet. Can you and Daddy just go together? Leo jutted out his lip. But I want Mommy to come too. Just then, a familiar voice came from outside the door. Then all 3 of us can go together. Julian walked in carrying Leo's small backpack. Eleanor glared at him. Did you coax Leo into coming here? Julian waved his hands defensively. No, I am innocent. Leo kept begging to see his mom, so I brought him. Leo nodded enthusiastically from the side. Yeah, I wanted to see you, Mommy. For once, Eleanor burst out laughing. All right, I won't work late tonight. Yay, Leo cheered. The 3 left the company and got into Julian's car, heading for the theme park. In the car, Leo chattered nonstop. Mommy, I want to ride the carousel. Sure, let's ride it. Daddy, buy me ice cream. Sure, I will buy you too. Can I get a balloon too? Sure, I will buy you everything. Listening to the father-son conversation, Eleanor unconsciously smiled. Over the past 3 years, Julian had truly kept every promise he made. Rain or shine, he stayed by Leo's side every day, knowing everything from the toys Leo liked to his favorite snacks. It was the same for her. When she worked late, he brought her midnight snacks. When she was sick, he dropped everything to nurse her. On days she was in a bad mood, he tried his hardest to make her smile. He was no longer the selfish, arrogant Julian. He had become a true adult who perfectly learned how to give love. Arriving at the theme park, Leo was thrilled, frantically riding the carousel, bumper cars, and the little train. Julian sweated profusely chasing after the child, while Eleanor sat on a bench watching them, feeling a warm sense of happiness. Before they knew it, the sun was setting. Mommy, I am hungry. All right. Let's go eat. How about pizza? The 3 sat by the window in an Italian restaurant inside the theme park. Sitting in a high chair, Leo gripped a fork and chewed on his pizza. Julian cut the child's pizza into small pieces, and Eleanor poured drinks into their glasses. A waiter approached and smiled. You 3 look like such a lovely family. We are having a buy one get one free promotion on our ice mousse cake. Would you like to order one? Julian quickly glanced at Eleanor. Eleanor smiled and replied, Yes, we will take one. After the waiter left, Julian whispered affectionately, Ellie, you didn't deny it just now. Deny what? That the 3 of us are a family. Eleanor avoided his gaze and said nothing. Julian took a deep breath. Ellie, I have had a question I wanted to ask you for a long time. Eleanor looked up. What is it? Will you marry me again? Eleanor froze. Julian pulled a small velvet box from his pocket and opened it. It was a radiantly sparkling diamond ring. I know how terrible of a bastard I was in the past, and how much I hurt you. I know it is hard to be forgiven. Julian spoke, pressing all his sincerity into his words. His eyes were red. But spending every single day beside you and Leo for the past 3 years, I made a decision. I want to be a perfect shield for you 2. Won't you give me that chance? Looking at the diamond ring, Eleanor was swept up in complex emotions. The despair in the cold delivery room, the humiliation at the maternity retreat, the countless nights she had to endure alone. But at the same time, the changes in devotion he had shown over the past few years, and the image of him reliably protecting her by her side, flashed through her mind like a kaleidoscope. Next to them, Leo, who was chewing on his pizza, blinked and asked, Mommy, Daddy, what are you doing right now? Eleanor stroked the child's hair. Daddy is asking Mommy a question. What question? Asking if Mommy will keep living with Daddy. Leo thought about it carefully before asking. Well, do you want to live with him, Mommy? Eleanor smiled and asked back. Do you want to live with Daddy, Leo? Yeah. Leo nodded vigorously. Daddy brings me to the theme park, buys me ice cream, and builds Legos with me. Eleanor looked at Julian for a long time before speaking. Julian, do you know how long it took me to give you this answer? Julian nodded. I know. I am sorry I made you wait so long. Eleanor's eyes grew moist as well. If you disappoint me again this time, that will never happen. Julian hurriedly interrupted. I swear on the rest of my life. I will never do anything to disappoint you again. I will be truly good to you and Leo. Eleanor stayed silent for a moment before slowly reaching out and picking up the ring, then put it on me. Julian was bewildered for a second, then suddenly burst into tears, laughing like a fool. With trembling hands, he slipped the ring onto her ring finger. Beside them, Leo clapped. Wow, Mommy put on a ring. Mommy put on a ring. Other customers in the restaurant also clapped and whistled for them. Eleanor blushed, but she felt a warmth rising from deep within her heart. That night, upon returning home, Leo was so exhausted he fell asleep as soon as they opened the front door. After laying the child in bed and covering him with a blanket, Julian quietly closed the door. Eleanor was standing by the living room window, looking down at the New York skyline. Julian approached and gently hugged her from behind. Ellie, thank you. Leaning against his chest, Eleanor said nothing. Meeting you was the greatest luck of my life, he whispered. And almost losing you was the stupidest thing I ever did. Thank you so much for giving me a second chance. Eleanor turned around to face him. Julian, do you know why I gave you a second chance? Julian shook his head. It is partly because of Leo, she said. But it is also because I saw with my own two eyes that you truly changed. Julian's eyes grew red again. Do not worry. I will dedicate my life to proving that your choice today was not a mistake. Eleanor chuckled. Stop sniffling. You have to go to work tomorrow. Julian smiled back. Okay, I will stop sniffling. But can I just get one kiss instead? Before Eleanor's face could even turn flush, Julian's lips approached hers. The moonlight outside the window seemingly hid behind the clouds in embarrassment. And 3 years later, the 30th anniversary banquet of Montgomery Enterprises. The ballroom, with its dazzling chandeliers, was filled with VIP guests. Wearing a stunning red dress, Eleanor took the stage and smiled. Thank you sincerely to everyone who attended today, she said with a smile. Montgomery Enterprises is able to stand here today thanks to your unwavering support. Moving forward, we will continue to strive toward even greater success. Thunderous applause erupted. Below the stage, Julian held 9-year-old Leo, looking at his wife with proud eyes. Dad, Mom looks really pretty, Leo whispered. Yeah, Mom is always pretty. But I heard Dad used to be really mean to Mom a long time ago. Julian flinched. Leo stared right at him. Uncle Nathan said so. He said Dad made Mom cry a long time ago. Julian was silent for a moment, then stroked his son's hair. Dad was a bad guy. That is why now, Dad is treating Mom twice, 3 times as well, to make up for all the mistakes I made back then. Leo nodded. Yeah, I will help you treat Mom really, really well too. Julian smiled brightly. Finishing her speech on stage, Eleanor cast a glance toward them. Julian waved his hand, and Leo waved so hard, his arm almost fell off. Eleanor smiled, stepped down from the stage, and walked toward them. How did I do? Did I speak well? You were perfect. Julian wrapped his arm around her waist. My wife is the best. Next to them, Leo rubbed his stomach. Mom, I am hungry. Eleanor laughed and tapped the boy's nose. Let's go. Let's go eat something delicious. The family of 3 walked toward the side of the ballroom. Not far away, Nathan was watching them with a pleased smile. Victoria approached and followed his gaze. Your sister looks truly happy now. Victoria smiled. Nathan pulled her into an embrace and said, After the storm comes the sun. Victoria acted coy and asked, So when is our joy coming? Nathan laughed heartily. The two of them also blended into the bustling crowd. The party continued late into the night. Laughter and upbeat music never ceased. Sitting in a corner of the ballroom, Eleanor took in the entire scene, feeling an overwhelming sense of emotion. She remembered the desperate nights a few years ago, lying in the delivery room shedding endless tears. But now, Beside her was a family that loved her more than anyone in the world. A son who was the apple of her eye, and a husband trying to spend his life healing her wounds. She suddenly thought that all the pain and trials were a worthwhile journey to reach this perfect happiness. "Mom, what are you thinking about?" Leo tilted his head and asked. Eleanor kissed her child's forehead. "Mommy was just thinking about how happy she is right now." Leo smiled bashfully. "I am really happy too." Julian watched the two of them, his eyes welling up. "Ellie," he whispered softly in her ear. "Thank you." Eleanor looked at him and smiled brightly. "There is no need to thank me. We have so many more days to live ahead of us." Julian interlocked his fingers with hers and held on tight. "Yeah, we have a long way to go. Let's take our time and be happy for a long, long time." Outside the window, a spectacular fireworks display lit up the night sky, as if perfectly symbolizing how Eleanor's once pitch-black life had finally bloomed dazzlingly. The night sky was shining brilliantly,